What is going on, my fellow OMI homies? It's Foster, and I'm back at it again with another VeVe and Ecomi video. Guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if you are watching this video right now and you are not subscribed, please feel free to do so down below. It is the only financial advice that I will ever give you on my channel. Guys, today I wanted to nerd out a little bit and go over some of the OMI tokenomics, specifically in relation to OMI token burn and the effect that as new utility is added for the token, it is likely to have on the circulating supply of OMI coming into 2022. Right now, for those of you that do not know, OMI that is burnt, if you see posts about it on a regular basis, the OMI that is being burnt is coming from out of circulating supply. What that means is that it's coming from either the reserve wallet or the vault wallet and moving into the burn wallet. When this project was created, it was created with 750 billion tokens. Of that 750 billion, almost 450 billion will never enter the circulating supply, meaning that the max tokens in circulation for the project will only ever be about 300 billion. Tokens in circulation are tokens that me and you can buy off of exchanges, buy, sell, and trade, and will eventually be able to use for utility on the VeVe app. Tokens that were minted out of the circulating supply were minted to ensure that some of the processes in the back end were effective for the project, but they are never tokens that will enter the circulating supply, meaning that they do not have an effect on the token price when they are burnt and removed from circulation. So what inspired me to make this video, and shout out to Jeremy Padower, he's a great asset to the community. For those of you that do not know who Jeremy is, he's the global toy maker for Pokemon, Fortnite, and Roblox, and he's been heavily invested in the OMI project since about 2018, and he's a great supporter of the project. He often shows up in AMAs and other various social functions, and it's great to have him on board as an asset or champion for this community. He put out this tweet on December 24th. He said, in the last 7 days, an amazing 1.9 billion OMI has been burnt. He then outlined how much OMI was burnt on each of those days. And then he said 3/5 of 1% of all OMI reserve in 7 days has been burnt, and 8 billion OMI in just over 2 months. Now, this is really exciting, and as you can see, a lot of people are really excited about it, but I think it's important to understand the distinction and the difference, and I know that Jeremy does, but it's important to understand that while these tokens are burning, they're not having a direct impact or correlation on the OMI price, and I want to break that down for you to show you some of the ways that will come in 2022 that will start to impact the token price from the circulating supply directly from these burns, and then talk about why, even though the burns aren't coming directly from circulating supply right now, it's still extremely bullish for the project. I've put together this spreadsheet that you guys can all see here. I know it's a lot of numbers and information. Don't worry, I'm going to go over all of it for you. And of course, if you want to pause the video at any point or you need me to repeat something, hit J on your keyboard and you get to watch it again. And if you still have questions after all that is done, leave a comment down in the comment section below. I will do my best to get back to each and every one of you. So, on this spreadsheet, we have the 7 days of data that Jeremy referenced in his tweet. This is how much OMI was burnt on the 18th to the 24th of December, totaling the 1.8 billion OMI tokens. When I was putting this together, I had to come up with a methodology because it's important to understand that it's not as simple as just saying, hey, this much OMI was burnt. But if you don't understand where those numbers come from, it's very difficult to understand the bigger macro impacts that it will have on the project. So my methodology when I was putting this together was that first, all transactions will use the average OMI price as the calculation for OMI burn. And the reason for that is that it was too difficult to track purchase time and OMI price at transaction. And what I mean by that is a percentage of a purchase in the VeVe app with gems is converted into OMI at the time of purchase and is then burnt as a part of every single transaction. But as the OMI price fluctuates and it is not consistent, it would be impossible to know what the exact price was of OMI at the exact point in time that someone bought a collectible on the app. And considering that there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of transactions that take place in only 1 week's time, it would take me days, if not months, to track it. And unless OMI releases that backend data, I don't ever think we'd be able to hammer it down completely. So what I did is I took the 7-day average of the OMI price, which was approximately 0.0062. And that is what I used for these calculations. It's a statistical average, and it's the closest that we'll be able to get for this video. The second, as purchases in the secondary market have fees ranging from 2.5 to 8.5%, an average of 6% which was used as the majority of drops at an 8.5% fee. So as you can see on the screen here, these are all the drops that took place in the 7-day period that I tracked. You can see the different brands, Deadpool, Coca-Cola, all the way down through Steamboat Willie and ending in Holiday Groot. A lot of these have the 8.5% marketplace fee in the secondary market. So because of that, I was thinking about using 8.5%, but I felt like that was going to skew the number too high because other people are still purchasing collectibles in the marketplace for 2.5%. So I settled on 6% as likely being the average. The final thing, it's important to keep in mind that the collectibles purchased in the VeVe store, so in the primary market, burn 100% of OMI, and that OMI comes from the vault, and that purchases in the market actually come from the reserve. So that was an interesting nuance and wasn't actually something that I had even realized until I made this video. So it always pays dividends to do your research, and I continue to learn things each and every day about this project. So all of these numbers aren't particularly important. I'll get down to the important ones in a second, but some interesting facts. For an example, Deadpool burned 373 million OMI on the drop. That was done with the average purchase price, like I said again, of 0.0062. And there was 490 million OMI burnt on the 18th. So that meant approximately 76% of the OMI that was burnt on the 18th of December was burnt from that 30-second window when that drop took place. And then there was secondary market buying and selling that took place, but it burnt far less OMI. And the reason that that statistic becomes interesting as we scroll down to this row right here is that we can see that 1.4 billion of the 1.8 billion OMI that was burnt over the 7 days was burnt from drops, which, like I said, is a statistical average of approximately 76%. Only 446 million OMI was burnt in the secondary market. And the reason that that is interesting is because I ran the numbers, and if you take an average of 6% sales revenue at the average price of OMI, people would have spent approximately $46 million in the secondary market in only 7 days on the VeVe app, spending over 5 times more than what was spent in the primary market, but only burning 19% of the amount of OMI relative to the burn that was done in the primary market, which is interesting because Ecomi has always come out and said that they believe that the vast majority of the burn will take place in the secondary market. But from running these numbers, it almost seems as though the vast majority of the burn, at least over this 7-day period, took place in the primary market. So I went with those numbers because I found them very interesting. So what I've done is created a model down here and gone over 365 drops in a year. Why I've settled on that? Well, in the 7-day period, we had an average of 7 drops. I know that VeVe is planning to have over a dozen drops on a weekly basis coming into the years to come, and we will have multiple drops every single day. So because of that, 365 felt like a fairly conservative number, and it's easy statistically because it's 1 drop a day. So on 1 drop a day, based on the average revenue that VeVe got over that 7-day period that I tracked, their revenue would be $406 million. $406 million sounds like a lot of money, but when you think about the fact that they've already made over $100 million in revenue this year, that's actually not as large of a growth as we will likely expect for them to see. So I do consider that number to be fairly conservative, but it's still good for reference purposes. So as we can see here with the average price of the 0.0062, on the primary market, 100% of OMI sales are burnt as they're converted to gems and OMI and burnt from the reserve wallet. 67.7 billion OMI would be burnt from the reserve wallet in 1 year just from primary market revenue and sales if VeVe was to have 1 drop every single day. I thought that that was very interesting because once again, I believe that this is very conservative. I think next year VeVe will likely gross over $1 billion in revenue because as the user base increases, the drop sizes will also increase to accommodate that bigger growth. And as you can see up here as an example, Holiday Groot, I didn't even realize this, but Holiday Groot had almost 60,000 editions and was $40. It netted $2.3 million for VeVe. And when you consider the fact that Deadpool, which I believe is a much bigger character and had a lot more hype associated with it, it only netted $2.31 million, only $10,000 more than Holiday Groot. And then Steamboat Willie netted the most of the week at almost $2.4 million. So it's very interesting when you consider the fact that as these larger edition runs will come out, VeVe will continue to gross more money. And as they gross more money, it will burn more OMI. So that is fantastic. So we can see here 67.7 billion OMI burnt with 365 drops per year. What I found more interesting though was that the secondary spent. So in the secondary market, with these same numbers being translated to 365 drops, there would be $2.1 billion in VeVe collectibles bought and sold on the secondary market with 365 drops. Now, at the current price of OMI and a 6% sales burn, which was once again the statistical average that we were using, it would only burn 21 billion OMI. So VeVe only has to net 400 million to burn 67 billion OMI, but in the secondary market, even spending $2 billion only burns less than a third of what you would be burning with a fifth of the money in the primary market. And this is very interesting. And the reason that I find it interesting is it goes to show that the secondary market, although prices sell for a lot higher generally, and although there's a lot more collectibles transacted, only having a 6% burn drastically reduces the amount of OMI that is being burnt regardless of the amount of sales that are taking place. So some of the considerations that I found really interesting, once again, 76% of OMI burn came from the days studied from the primary market, and they only had 19% of the buying volume. It's also important to note that this model does not account for larger user base or drop size, which we've referenced, third-party OMI integration, as well as factors as OMI to land and non-specific IP in the VeVeverse, which will drastically increase burn rates. Now, for me saying that, some of you may not understand what that means. I'll pull up this video on the screen and I will link it down below in the comment section. This is a video that I put out back in October titled OMI Burning Sooner Than Expected. And I actually created a model going over the estimated revenue that VeVe was going to make, the price of OMI, how much OMI would be required to be burnt, the burn rate and the burn amount of OMI, and what impact it would have on the circulating supply. Some of these items, such as land and non-specific IP, so whether it be shelving or lights or tables in the VeVeverse when that rolls out in 2022, will burn 100% of the OMI that is used to purchase those items. And I think that this goes to show, when we look at the numbers, you don't need nearly as much buying volume when you're burning 100% of the OMI from a purchase to get large burns based on those numbers. So I found that very interesting. And that's something that I wanted to hammer home to people that are watching this video, because I know right now it can feel a little bit discouraging that the OMI is not going down from the circulating supply because it's not coming from wallets that are in circulation. But when OMI to NFT comes out and that 2.5% or this $46 million is coming from directly the circulating supply, you could burn 500 million OMI in a week directly from the circulating supply. When OMI to land comes out and they sell land parcels for the VeVeverse, 100% of those purchases will be burnt from the circulating supply. Anytime someone buys any form of accessory that is not officially licensed or branded, or is VeVe specific branded and they own the IP rights to it, they can burn 100% of that OMI directly from the circulating supply. And that is when you are going to start to see these significant impacts on the OMI price. So just as an experiment, we can have some fun with this. Let's say, and we're probably getting a little crazy here, but let's say VeVe had 3 drops every single day for a year. We could see at these current prices 185 billion OMI burnt in the primary market and 57 billion burnt in the secondary market, meaning that if we hit a bear market and OMI prices stay low and they don't go up, because as OMI price goes up, the amount of OMI that is required to be used relative to the price of OMI goes down, meaning that less is burnt. So actually low prices are actually quite advantageous for the project right now. So if we were to have 1,000 drops in a year, which sounds like a lot, but when you consider the fact that we're likely going to be getting DC Comics, we're going to be getting multiple verticals and fandoms, they've already indicated that they want to do more than multiple drops in a day and multiple drops at the same time, so that you have to pick your fandom. It gets very interesting because we see here that we would burn 240 billion OMI from the reserve wallet. And as you can see here, the reserve wallet only has 263 billion OMI in it. Another point to keep in mind as I wrap up this video is that the OMI wallet requires a certain percentage of it to be maintained in order to function effectively. In the white paper, they said it's about 40%. I'm sure that they could get by with less, but if they wanted to maintain that level, they would have to start to do buybacks directly from the circulating supply in order to accommodate all of the OMI that was being used to burn from the purchases. And all buybacks that are done directly from the circulating supply, which is just one of the many catalysts that will work and coincide with one another to ensure that the OMI price is deflated as much, or the circulating supply is deflated as much as possible, which should in turn increase the price of OMI. We could see, once again, with 1,000 drops at this price, if OMI was to stay this way for another year, we would likely reduce the circulating supply of OMI by half. And that does not account for staking and other forms of utility that will be added for the token. So I think that this is really exciting. And I always think it's important to run these numbers, because once you really start to run them and understand the catalyst and what moves the project, it's very interesting to see that the primary market actually has more of an impact currently on tokens being removed from circulation than the secondary market. And I hope that all of us moving forward are very much rooting for OMI and VeVe to do as many drops as possible to make sure that we're burning as much OMI as possible to increase the value of our bags as much as we can. I know that this video was a little bit more technical than some of the videos that I normally do. So if you guys do have any questions, once again, leave them down in the comment section below. If there's anything that you don't understand, you want changed, or that you simply don't agree with, I'm always interested to hear all of your guys' thoughts and opinions. I look forward to continue to make content like this coming into 2022. And if you do have any ideas or suggestions for videos, let me know. Thank you all once again for your support. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Love you all. Peace.